Greetings ladies and lads, and welcome to the tragic tale of the effects of long-term warpstone abuse by Hollywood's beloved child actor, Stuart Little. Looks like Skaven are back on the menu, boys, as history shows us time and time again that just denying their existence doesn't make them go away. In today's mini makeover, I'll try and freshen up a miniature that is very near and dear to me, as it belonged to a friend with whom I found my entry into this hobby with the purchase of the Battle for the Blood Island starter pack for Warhammer Fantasy, now more than 10 years ago. Jesus, we were 13 or 14 then, and as time passed and I only seemed to get deeper and deeper into it, this Skaven player eventually dropped the hobby and bestowed his army onto me. And now, with the revival of the Skaven tide in AOS, the time has come to get these minis out of their coffers and back on the field with a refreshed coat of paint. Refreshed coat, because we of course don't strip the previous paint, and today even more so than usual, we really don't need to, as my friend really did a dang good job with painting his mini as close to Heavy Metal's example as possible, especially for a 14-year-old. I decided to start the makeover with this robe, taking a dark brown to try and get some contrast going. After that's dry, we pick out the individual folds with a brownish red again, before finishing it up with some bright red highlights. Next off, we want to tackle the armor, and really just freshen up the dusty coat it currently has with a fresh and crisp layer of true metallic brass. This is definitely a case where the after is hard to differentiate from the before, with the exception of the Warlord's helmet, where I swapped the dark silver for our orange brass. When it comes to the skin/fur of this guy, I think we really can't go wrong with a dark grey as our base. Redefining the overall shape of the model, we pick out all the parts where his body is visible between his clothing. One of the important goals of every makeover is trying to make the model look less messy, as we take a true metallic silver next to touch up certain parts of his armor and especially his blades, from the one on his head to the ones in his hands. After that, it just feels natural to step away from our guy for a second and just focus on his weapons, which for now just means cleaning up the previous paint job. Brownie points for the people who will win the debate on what family this polearm belongs to, as I couldn't decide between a Volk, a Bill, or a Glaive. Godspeed, my friends, I personally think it's a Glaive. Turning to his impromptu Skaven Sashimono, which is yet another keyword for you to take away from this video, I decided to switch to a different wood color, and while I cleaned up this mess behind his back, I realized that these parts, which I presume to belong to his robe, are actually more of his exposed skin. So, let me correct that real quick, and so this is actually more of a skirt than a full robe, or a kilt if you will. Astoundingly decent of him. Very cool, very cool. Back to his sashimono, we pick out these strings with a mustard yellow. Don't worry, it'll die down a lot before we're done. After that, it's time for the most satisfying part of today, as we take an eggshell white and clean up this mess of a banner. God damn, so good. This is why I love doing these kinds of projects. With the icon, we stay true to the original, and just give it a quick touch up with true metallic gold, which we also want to use to roughly make out the torch basket on the top. Now, I should have probably done that sooner, but I guess it's better late than never that we take our cutter and clip away the bits of spruce still on the model. I guess they didn't bother me before because, not to be mean here, they blended in so well with the overall mess of the paint job. Once we've patched those areas back up, we turn to his tail and darken down the extremely bright skin with a darker beige. And that's when I realized why my guy looked so off to me. Skaven are red men. They aren't furries, they actually do have lots of exposed skin like humans do. By the horned one, we gotta change this ASAP. Sticking with the dark beige and painting it over all the furless parts we painted grey before. How embarrassing, I don't know my reds. But now that all the base colors are finally where they are supposed to be, it's time for us to take up a dark shade and heavily wash this guy with it. No need to be shy with it, this red is evil and can therefore be washed a little more heavy-handedly, except for the banner of the Sashimono. Here we switch to a rosy brown wash to just dirty this bad boy up, as I can promise you that nothing on this man is objectively clean. Once the wash is dry, we continue to flesh out the skin with a lighter beige for the upper areas, leaving the darker beige in the recesses. This is also a great opportunity to pronounce the individual rings on his tail. But we are not quite done with him yet, as I want to take another, even lighter beige, to just quickly touch up the most prominent parts of his skin. Highlights are the A and O of any paint job really, so it's no surprise that we continue to pick them out on the banner in white and the armor in silver. The latter might seem a little unorthodox, but stay with me here when I say that it actually works really well with the overall Skaven aesthetic. I think. Here we just paint along the reflexes of light from our table lamp, eyeballing it here and there, but not overdoing it to keep it interesting and give the brass enough breathing room. Of course, this bright silver is also great to highlight the metal of the blades. Next up lies the baptism of fire for any miniature painter: freehand symbols and handwriting. For the big ones, I just stuck with what I could find online and in the codex, really trying to not mix different clan symbols together. For the handwriting, I painted some squiggly lines with the very tip of my brush, after which we put a few right-leaning strokes over and under these lines, to really make them look like cursive lettering. I then finally noticed this little pouch he's bound to his belt, but whatever riches he's got in there will never cover the dental he needs, which is why I painted over his originally brilliant white chompers with a light khaki. Yeah, you don't need to glare at me with those red eyes, it's not my fault GW's Britain-based. Alright, focus. The fire atop his Sashimono doesn't really strike me as a bright flare, and regular flames are actually not that hard to get right. Of course, there's a debate to be had whether to keep the inside or the outside bright, and funnily enough, there are definitely arguments for either side, but the only thing you really need to look out for are seamless transitions. I definitely overshot the needed wetness in that regard, which is why I waited for the paint to dry before I continued with sketching in the brighter green flames. Though, in the end, I just hoped the paint would know better than me, as I finished it up with a nasty poison green for the perfect look of warpstone fire. Oh, speaking of warpstone, the trinket around his neck would also look great in green. And sometimes, these vermin even carve weapons out of this material. So, let's see if we can spice this model up with a wicked warpstone cleaver. And as if this weapon wouldn't already be unholy enough, I even pulled out some contrast paint to lay the base for our glow effect. After that, I started layering in the bright outlines, similar as I did with every glowing weapon I've ever painted so far. But for some reason, it didn't really work out this time. I don't know, my head wasn't in the game with this one. Oh god, this actually looks like something that's still in need of a makeover, and not the result of one. Moving on to the base after that disaster, we laid the foundation with a rough texture paint on an old brush. I don't want to go with the regular earth today, so instead I opted for more of a gravel look with a light grey dry brush of the ground and the rock the Warlord standing on. As a High Elven player, I do recognize that this is an elvish waystone, but I'll leave it grey to stay closer to my friend's color scheme. Some bushes to give the base the needed spice, and a smooth brown trim for the old school vibes complete today's makeover and leave us with a Warlord worthy of his title. It's fascinating to see the result, because the pre-makeover paint job was already so close to, what we're left with now, that this is honestly the first paint job leaving me with quite the hollow feeling. Objectively speaking, it does look better, but thinking about the fact that I've painted over one of my friend's best works, a true relic so to speak, makes me wonder if maybe I've been too reckless today. I make it sound as if he's fucking dead, and I've just erased proof of his existence. This is not the case. He is very much alive and well, see? Look at this guy, living out the ultimate male fantasy of resurrecting the Roman Empire. Damn, I didn't want to end this video on such a low note, so in a way, I think I should feel validated in the mission of these makeovers, which is to get these miniatures to their fullest potential without completely erasing all of the work their pre-owners put into them. I do all of this as much for a challenge as I do it to pay respect. Of course, I know that not everybody has time to do this painstaking process, but I do, and I'll keep doing it. So if you'd like to see more makeovers, let me know and share your thoughts down in the comments section. Next up on this channel will be a tutorial for some pristine Stormcast, as well as a tutorial to make them look battle-worn and blood-soaked. So if that's something that would interest you, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as I am really looking forward to seeing you again in the next video. Until then, take good care of yourself and maybe give those old friends a call.